It is the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. He's coming to you from his home. I am in the studios at Main Street Murray here in Columbia. Excited to be here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports content. Wade, happy Monday.
What's up, Mo? Happy Monday to you. Good to be with you. Good to see everybody. Good to be just on the air for a couple hours here and kind of, like you said, wrapping up the weekend, but kind of easing into a brand new one here on Main Street Sports Today.
Oh, absolutely. It's a new one. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that has happened, and we are going to try to touch on as much of it as we can here over the next couple of hours. And we're going to be going in a lot of different directions. We got some college football. We got some pro football, still talking baseball, a little WNBA action, some soccer. I mean, we're going to be all over the board here over the next couple of hours. In the second hour, we're going to continue our Southeastern Conference football previews as we bring in Mark Story from the Lexington Herald Leader to talk a little UK Wildcats. In the next segment, we'll be visiting with the Queen of Tennessee sports media, TERESA M. Walker of the Associated Press, getting her impressions of the Tennessee Titans in their opening preseason matchup down at Tampa Bay over the weekend, and what we expect to see here over the next week before they take on Atlanta on the road. So a lot of college football, a lot of pro football. It's that time of year. We'll also be talking some Braves. They had a intriguing weekend. Intriguing in a good way for a change. Again, we will talk some college football as the AP Top 25 preseason poll came out earlier today. Get into that a little bit. Astros had a nice visit to Yankee Stadium as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that both in the rundown and later in the show. And there was some really interesting WNBA activity over the weekend, yesterday in particular. We'll get into some of that as well. Again, a little racing, a little soccer, a little golf. It's a smorgasbord. And Wade and I are going to be diving in here in just a bit. So looking forward to doing so. Wade, Titans were out of town this weekend, so I know you weren't at Nissan. What you get into?
Well, we went over to the East Nashville Tomato Fest, caught a little bit of the local flair, ran the 5K in the morning, saw all the sights and sounds, and ate more food than you could possibly imagine. Big weekend, and like you said, Titans out of town. We got one last concert tomorrow. The Weeknd will bless us with his presence, so should be a fun show. Looking forward to that one. And then next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday, folks that have not yet seen the Titans in person will get a chance to get their glimpse for their only preseason game of note at Nissan Stadium. So not bad, and not a bad weekend. I'm curious, what was Mostradamus into this weekend?
Mostradamus was watching a little high school preseason stuff, taking care of some preseason football tab stuff. It was a working weekend, unfortunately, but it was good. Sat in front of the TV again, got to watch some winning baseball from a team down south. So it wasn't a bad weekend. Kept up with our local post-19 seniors in regional play out in Missouri. They lost a tough championship Sunday series after going unscathed through the week in the Mid-South region, came up just short of a World Series berth over at Shelby, North Carolina, with a pair of losses to Bossier City, Louisiana. But it was fun keeping up with those guys. They played a whale of a tournament into the finals. But, yeah, a lot of sitting around, being a vegetable. Unfortunately, didn't get out as much as I would have liked. Hope to remedy that this coming weekend. So, yeah, it was a good weekend. Ready to get the week started. And I guess we will go ahead and do that, Wade. And let's jump in with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Hey, gang, before we get into the rundown, each and every single Monday, our rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831, or you can visit zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Friday's Major League Baseball results of local interest. That's local to me and Wade. The Astros picking up a 5-3 victory up at Yankee Stadium over the Bronx Bombers. The Braves dropped a 5-1 decision to visiting Miami. Sounds action. It was the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, the AAA affiliate of the Marlins, dealing the Nashville Sounds a 4-1 loss over at First Horizon Park. In WNBA action on Friday night, the New York Liberty picked up an 88-77 win over the Dallas Wings. It was Minnesota 80, Washington 76, and the Las Vegas Aces with a 90-86 win over the Seattle Storm.
Roll into Saturday. Got not one, not two, but three MLB scores to run through, and all of them good for Mo as the Braves kind of flexing their muscle on the Marlins in the NL East there with a 7-1 victory to open things up. 8-6 was your final in the nightcap. Again, the Braves winning 2 games of a twin bill versus the Marlins on Saturday. Yankees beat the Astros 5-4. Sounds action from Saturday. Jacksonville defeats Nashville 9-5. Unfortunately for the Sounds, was that Saturday final. WNBA scores: the Fever roughing up the Chicago Sky 92-70, and Golden State staying a little hot. The Valkyries with a 72-59 win over the LA Sparks. Late night Saturday, it was the Bucks defeating the Titans in preseason number 1 for the boys in two-tone blue. And in MLS action, not good for the boys in gold. It was St. Louis City defeating NSC up in St. Louis. 3-1 was that final.
Sunday Major League Baseball action. 7-1. Good guys. Houston with a 7-1 win over the Yankees. The Braves with a 7-1 win over Miami to close both those series. Not good guys. Jacksonville 2, Nashville 1 in the finale of that 6-game series over at First Horizon Park. WNBA action, it was the Minnesota Lynx going into Barclays Center. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. Lynx 83, Liberty 71, the final there. Washington with a 91-78 win over the Dallas Wings. It was Atlanta going on the road, picking up a 74-66 win over Phoenix. Los Angeles 94, Seattle 91, the final, and the Aces with a 94-86 win over the dreadful Connecticut Sun in a game that the Sun actually led by 12. FedEx St. Jude Class Championship out at Memphis. It took overtime, but Justin Rose downs J.J. Spawn and everybody else to win that championship again over at Memphis. Big win for Justin Rose. More on that later in the show.
Rolling into your schedule for today, kind of light, so enjoy what you got here. The Red Sox will be at the Astros tonight in MLB action. That game gets underway at 7:10 p.m. Later in WNBA action, later in the evening, that is, 9 p.m. will be the tip-off time as the Connecticut Sun are at the Golden State Valkyries. Again, MLB, 1 single game of local interest tonight. In WNBA, 1 game total tonight. 7:10 and 9 p.m. are your respective start times. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our Monday schedule. Those were our weekend results, and that concludes your Monday rundown.
Your top story brought to you by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you our top story. As we mentioned, the Associated Press preseason top 25 college football poll, hot off the presses, and number 1 with a bullet, the Texas Longhorns. They are one of 10 Southeastern Conference teams in the top 25, actually in the top 24, as you can see there on the screen. Of course, when you got 16 teams, it helps. But Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, your top 3 teams. Clemson and Georgia, 4 and 5. Scroll on down, you've got Alabama and LSU at 8 and 9. South Carolina at 13. A lot of folks really loving Lenora Sellers. Um, 15 is the Florida Gators. Oklahoma and Texas A&M are 18 and 19. Ole Miss is 21. And again, Tennessee coming in at number 24. And, it's interesting to me coming off the success that they had. Maybe they lost more folks than some people would have liked. I'm not sure. I just wouldn't necessarily have expected Tennessee to be behind Florida, Oklahoma, and A&M. But I don't know if that's a reflection of quarterback situations. I mean, Florida's got DJ Lagway, and if he's healthy, then he is a game changer, obviously. Not sure exactly what the quarterback situation looks like at Oklahoma. I think they had a transfer in from Washington State. That should be interesting. Obviously, Marcel Reed, the former NBA standout, QB1 out in College Station. But I guess, like I said, I just would have expected Tennessee to be a little higher than 24.
You would think, if nothing else, just you don't see in college basketball. You see a wide variety of ebbs and flows in these preseason polls, but college football kind of feels like they kind of stick to where you sort of finished in the last season's poll. But Tennessee, you're right. I mean, yes, a lot of questions at quarterback, and you don't have James Pierce kind of roaming around on defense. I kind of would get why or the rationale. I guess I am sort of surprised that they actually went through with the vote. It feels like college football kind of sticks to the guns again, unless there's a dramatic drop off in talent. So a little bit of a shock there. Not a shock, obviously, to see so many SEC teams represented. They will have a tremendous opportunity to make a run at this thing and win that national championship. A lot of it will stem from Texas, but obviously don't count out Georgia. And I'm really obviously fascinated to kind of see what Alabama does in year number 2 of Kalen DeBoer down there.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Alabama's fascinating. I think LSU is fascinating as well. If Nussmeier plays to the top of his game, obviously LSU can be a factor. They're always going to have somebody for him to throw it to. So, Brian Kelly's always worth the watch as well. Hey, I'm intrigued by South Carolina, though. I'm with Sellers with another, with a full year under his belt. What's he capable of doing in that offense? So it's here, y'all. We are what? 2 weekends away, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, we will get some college football. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
With 2 ranked teams, we'll have Kansas State and Iowa State going head to head. Farmageddon over in Dublin to kick us off. My Michigan Wolverines, that was a surprise on my end. That is way too high for them because, man, not only you feel confident or you'd like to feel optimistic about what you got in your freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood. If he gets the nod, he's still got to win that job. But, man, they lost so much talent, lost multiple first-round draft picks on the defensive side of the ball, lost several other key players on the defensive side of the ball. Probably would have expected them, as a little bit of an objective fan there, to see them a little lower. Loaded poll, Indiana, can they have any sort of repeat performance to what they had last year?
Mm-hmm.
Schedule was certainly favorable last year. Schedule kind of favorable again this year. Maybe they can do it. And we talked Big 12 last week on this show on Tuesday. Texas Tech might be a team, Mo, it sounds like, to circle. We've talked about their money spending in softball and how it paid off. They've committed every bit as much and then some to their football program. Keep your eyes on them to maybe rise up from that low 20 mark as the season progresses.
I'm intrigued, Wade, if you go over here to the others receiving votes and the number of group of 5 teams that are represented over there. I mean, you've got some of the obvious suspects, Tulane, Memphis, Army, all of which coming off of pretty solid performances last year. But you're also seeing UNLV and Toledo and JMU has kind of broken into that notoriety, I guess. Also Liberty, Louisiana Lafayette out of the Sun Belt getting some votes. It'll be interesting to see what kind of start some of those teams get off to, because they probably got some bye games and that kind of thing, and how folks stick with them early on.
You would think, and to me, it kind of feels like some of these voters said, I'll throw them a little sympathy vote here at the end. At least it kind of maybe make them feel good. But for some of those teams, especially, a team like Toledo that has been playing pretty good football the last couple seasons, but is not exactly the real Group of Five household kind of name.
Mm-hmm.
Being kind of in the conversation early kind of means a little something to these programs. Doesn't really make a hill of beans to the big dogs, because you can play your way obviously through, and you can sort of play your way through in the Power Five, or Group of Five rather. But kind of being in the conversation early at least kind of helps your cause to get things kickstarted.
Absolutely. I mean, being on that radar early on, and if you can pick up a couple of games and folks are already kind of seeing your name out there, maybe that creates a little momentum for you. So yeah, nice little spot for Toledo, JMU, some of those folks to be in here as we get ready to get things started up. Is there anybody, Wade, that you can think of that maybe you would have expected to see and don't?
I don't know about expected to see and don't, but one team we have not discussed yet that quietly is going to be a big player. I don't know about winning the league by any stretch, but Illinois in the Big Ten, look out for them. They return a boatload of talent. We obviously know their head coach is not afraid of anything or anybody, so they are going to kind of come out guns a-blazing. They have reason to be optimistic heading into this year. I'm obviously fascinated one slot above them by Arizona State. Kind of in that same Big 12 segment on last Tuesday. They have a lot of talent. They perhaps, everybody, it's almost as if they're kind of, everybody thinks they lost too much because Scatabo departed. But really, they return a lot, and including a starting quarterback that could be a Heisman contender by the end of the season. So ASU, can they duplicate what they did? Had Texas going to overtime last year, maybe we're still talking about a Cinderella run from those Sun Devils. But at the top, it's kind of business as usual. Your same usual suspects. This is college football at large. We like to get excited about everybody else, but at the end, there's really only 5 or 6 kind of supreme players, and it's the usual suspects in those same 5 or 6 slots again this year.
Yeah, and you're going to get a matchup early on between 1 and 3 in this ranking. Texas going to the Shoe to open the season. You've also got Clemson and LSU. Brian Kelly referring to Clemson as Death Valley Junior, kind of juicing things up for that season opener as well. So you got a couple of top 10 matchups right off the bat that will obviously kind of dominate that first weekend. So going to be fun from the very get. So looking forward to it here. I'm starting to kind of ease into the football mode here. I don't know if the NFL preseason kind of ate at that or what, but we're starting to get there.
We knew you would come around eventually, but yes, it is next weekend. You get a decent, like I said, Farmageddon will be electric because you got that week 0, you tune in and everybody's so excited. There's like 5 or 6 games. You really kind of can't get that fired up about Hawaii versus San Jose State or a game like that. So having kind of some juice right out of the gate with Farmageddon overseas in Dublin, and we saw a wild result in the opening game last year over there. I'm expecting a lot of points. I think the Irish folks will celebrate and kind of enjoy 2 high-powered offenses going toe-to-toe. Should be a fun one in that week 0 to really get us cranked up next weekend.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will be joined by the queen of Tennessee sports media, TERESA M. Walker of the Associated Press, talking little Tennessee Titans. Stick around.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
833.
Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and joining us now, TERESA M. Walker of the Associated Press to talk a little Tennessee Titans. TERESA, I know you didn't make it down to Tampa Bay, but I'm sure you were raptly enthralled by Saturday night's game. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm a little triggered by that lightning bolt on Wade's shirt. I'm sorry. I have bad
2-0 in the preseason.
No. I'm flashing back to a game where Kellen Winslow, overtime, Rolf Benirschke. It's just painful. Back in the day, I was a Dolphins fan, but as Hootie and the Blowfish once sang, Dolphins always make you cry. So
even the Dolphins make you cry, huh?
exactly. Yeah. And that happened too many times, and I got my own NFL team, so put that away. But that does scratch a painful memory. That said, yes, I was watching. And I'll say this. If I'm a Titans fan, I know it's tough to pump the brakes. Cam Ward is a rookie. But when you see what he did in that second quarter to drive them down the field to a touchdown, he completed 5 of 6 passes on that drive. It's I understand why fans are starting to get a little excited. And for all the most ignored first round, number 1 overall pick. Yeah, sorry, Roscoe making an appearance. It's almost
hey, Roscoe.
Hello.
But he's going to start getting attention. He keeps playing like that. Yes, we saw rookie mistakes, trying to throw the ball away, and it's like, young man, that's got to go out of bounds. You're not anywhere close to the sideline. A NFL defender can and will try to pick that off, and 9 times out of 10 they'll come up with it. Sorry, that's Roscoe using my laptop as a scratching pad. Sorry.
You're fine.
The throws that he made and the chemistry he showed with Calvin Ridley, 3 of 3, 50 yards, and more particularly, the time that he had to throw. But, man, the one throw that really jumped out at me, when he caught Calvin Ridley out toward the sideline, defenders on his back, and that ball was out front.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward has been busy. He's dialing in. He's balancing a lot as a rookie, and a lot of times it's almost like he's dialing in. He's been behind receivers, and he's getting closer and closer to putting that ball where it needs to be so that guys can catch it and run, which is what you need in the NFL. And you can see him literally growing day by day. They talk about how, sorry, I'm being attacked by a cat. There we go. But yeah, sorry, the air gun got rid of him.
Capital punishment there.
Exactly. But Cam Ward has just been, they talk about him not making the same mistake twice. We see that. We see, him getting in there at 5 a.m. Where do you see it? On the field. When you see him looking around and throwing the ball, did he make a rookie mistake another time when it was nearly picked on that touchdown drive? Yes. Not sure who he was throwing to on that pattern, but Brian Callahan said Sunday, like where he's at, yes, we've got some areas to go. Timing is one of those. But guys, did you see the time he had to throw? I mean, Blake Cushenberry is working his way back into the return to practice from the PUP list this week. He's their starting center when he's back. And then you've also got Kevin Zeitler, the 35-year-old guard that they didn't play on Saturday night, went with Andrew Rupsich, and they were giving the quarterback time. I'd have to go back in the Wayback Machine to Ryan Tannehill, 2021, late 19, to remember when they were giving the quarterback that much time to look down the field.
It's a welcome sight for Titans fans, I'm sure. And you mentioning not making the same mistake twice is a welcome concept for Titans fans as well. So yeah, I'm intrigued by the lack of attention, though. I saw a piece on the Sporting News earlier today where they graded the first round draft rookies by their performances this weekend, and Cam was given an A by whoever was doing the grading for the Sporting News, but he was the last guy mentioned out of maybe 8 guys that got A's. And I just would have expected the number 1 pick to have been ranked, listed a little higher in their piece, but I don't think he's bothered by it. I think folks watching are probably more bothered by that than he is. But at the same time, we talked to David Beauclair from the Nashville Banner about this a little bit on Friday, Teresa. It just feels like, because it's Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans, it's almost like he's being penalized for his affiliation.
Yeah, I mean, even when this franchise has been good and putting together winning years, this team has to win and do it in January for people to pay attention, and they pay attention in January. And then it's like this franchise disappears out of sight, out of mind. I mean, they're building a beautiful enclosed stadium, in a town that, let's face it, 2019, that draft set quite the standard for the NFL. But, some things haven't changed. This is the 29th year for this franchise in the city of Nashville. And yet it just, it's same old. It's like you got to go out and get their attention. And you would think having the number 1 pick would do it, but then there was Shedeur Sanders playing over the weekend. I mean, even in the same game Saturday night, Shiloh Sanders was getting more attention for hitting a quarterback, in that game, and than the guy who started at quarterback for the other team. So, that's the thing. You want to get their attention, go win, go throw touchdowns. And if I'm the Titans, I don't mind. I mean, Cam Ward has got this, show coming up on Tubi or something in September on the, on his progress to the NFL. So he'll get attention. And that's the thing. Go win, you will get attention. I'm going to use the Memphis Grizzlies as an example. They're a franchise, pro franchise, had lots of success. People forget about them. But you know what? The NBA has noticed they've got 2 games in Europe this upcoming season. Why? Because they've got an international superstar in Ja Morant. So Cam Ward, you go play, you will get exactly the attention that all the Titan fans want you to have at this very moment.
Aside on that Grizzlies deal, they've played in 2 games in Europe, but they're not getting a home game on MLK Day. And I think they're a little gritty and grindy over that.
Oh, totally, Mo. I mean, in Memphis, honestly, they have wanted and honestly probably deserved more years than not the prime time game on that day. And they use it as an incredible weekend. They bring a lot of attention to Martin Luther King and everything that he did, fighting for rights. And it's not just a game in Memphis. It's about honoring his legacy and all the work that he did. But I'll say this, them going overseas and playing in these games, while they're not in Memphis and they're not holding the programs and touring the Civil Rights Museum that you do when you're there, they're going to be talking about it. So I think that they may get a slightly bigger audience because of where they're playing these games, and maybe that helps bring some more attention to to his legacy and what Memphis is a part of that as well. But that's the challenge. I just take it for what it is. They need attention. They're trying to break out in a very star-filled Western Conference, and this is the NBA saying, "We see you down there, Memphis Grizzlies." And I'm going to point out, John Morant, he went on a little bit of a tour this offseason, and that included China. So, he's been representing the NBA this offseason, and I think they want to see him go do more of that, but in a Grizzlies uniform on a court.
Teresa, you were talking about attention, and I kind of was thinking if I'm the Titans and if I'm Cam Ward, he seems cool with it, like you said. If I'm the Titans, I'm kind of okay with my number one pick not being under this massive national microscope on a week-to-week basis. And, if he flies under the radar and makes a little bit of a mistake, hopefully it doesn't get too overblown, but that's a chance. Everybody's going to make mistakes, especially in their first year. I kind of view that as a weird positive for the Titans right now.
Oh, I agree, Wade, because that's the thing. This is a young man who talked to us a couple weeks ago about how, my dad got up at 4:30 in the morning to go to a job he didn't like. I can get up and be here for 5 a.m. for a job I do like. So, he understands that it's about the work, about playing and doing everything, that the production on the field is what will ultimately bring him attention. And he gets that. We've seen too many athletes come into the pro level in so many sports, and they want to be about that before they do that. And you gotta take one step at a time. You actually have to be that person. And I guarantee, if you are that on the field, court, wherever you're doing your sport, you will get the attention. Steve McNair, as much as everyone tried to ignore him, he ended up being a co-MVP of the NFL a year too late. Had to share one he shouldn't have shared, but that's the thing. You will get your accolades if you go do what you're doing, no matter how much people might want to ignore you.
I couldn't agree more. Teresa, speaking of accolades and kind of kudos, who else gets accolades or kudos in your mind from Saturday's game?
Well, I'm going to go back to Calvin Ridley. This is a guy who had a 1,000-yard season last year, but Nick Westbrook-Akine had 9 touchdown catches. At least half of those should have been Calvin Ridley's. And the chemistry and the camaraderie and the joy that you see him playing with this season, the connection with Cam Ward is strong, and it's growing day by day. And I think Calvin Ridley is looking forward to being on the field because he knows he's got a chance to be his best self thanks to Cam Ward. And I think that's going to bleed over through a receiving corps that is very, very competitive. And don't pay attention to one of the national folks who, put Xavier Restrepo as the guy to watch and ignored the two third-day draft picks that they had in Chim Dike and Elik Ayamaner. Those two guys, did you see some of the video of the catch that Ayamaner made against the Bucks on Thursday? Mm-hmm. He had a nice move on the DB that he played against and had that great catch. And Chim Dike has been the same way. So the competition in that receiving room is so strong. And, James Prochet, with his abilities to return the ball, he kind of rounds that out. But, keep an eye on the receiving corps. Cam Ward will go as they go. And right now the competition for 3, 4, 5, 6 is so strong that it literally is just pushing each of them to be better.
Real quick, Teresa, talking about offense, let's stay there for just a minute. Give us an update on the running back room, and obviously give us an update on Spears. I liked what I saw out of Chestnut on the Saturday, but also Khalil Mullings has got some pop as well. So kind of update us all around in the running back area.
Well, Tyjae Spears, taken to the locker room on a cart Saturday night, was seen after the game in a walking boot and on crutches. Brian Callahan told us yesterday he would be out at least a couple of weeks, that they still had a few things to do, so it sounded like waiting for some more test results, or, they didn't get to their hotel until 4 a.m. Sunday in Georgia ahead of the joint practices that start tomorrow with the Falcons. So, got to think that it's maybe mid-September before we see Spears again on a football field if the high ankle sprain, heals up quickly. That said, I agree with you there, Wade. Julius Chestnut, every time he's given a chance, he makes a play that catches your eye. And I think he, for all the people that I keep bringing in, and yes, the draft pick in Mullins is a guy that, unlike the TV broadcast. He's not 5'2". He's 6'1", 6'2", depending on who you look at. He's not 5'2". There's nobody over there that I am taller than. Let's just be honest. But he had a good chance. But I just think that Chestnut is probably the biggest beneficiary of the injury to Tyjae Spears, and that's an area that's showing some nice depth. And Pollard is the guy that he certainly showed. It's like he had a career year last year. And, he missed some games because of injury himself, but, he still had a career year. Shows to me that if need be, they've got their running back, and they've got a couple guys who can spell him when need be.
And if the offensive line is coming along, then it's going to make it easier for Pollard, Spears, or whoever is back there.
Oh, without a doubt. I think the fact that Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham have been working with Bill Callahan now for 2 off seasons. I think that's just huge. In addition to the fact that they brought in Dan Moore. Dan Moore was talking about, Bill Callahan showed him a little teeny trick about how to rotate his thumb to shed, a guy who's got his hands on him, and just a tiny little detail from the professor, so to speak. And it's like, nobody's been talking about left tackle this preseason, for a good thing. And if you looked on social media yesterday, Dylan Radins provided painful reminders of how tough tackle has been for this franchise the last 3-4 years. But I just think that group, Kevin Zeitler with his experience, Cushenberry coming back, Moore benefiting from having a great offensive line coach, helping him improve his technique. I'm really curious to see. Only 4 teams gave up more sacks than the Titans last year. If this
that
group,
many?
Yes. Yeah, I know. Well, Bears and Cleveland were 2 of the teams behind them. So, but that's the thing. If they clean that up and they're even mid-range, that's going to give this entire offense. It's going to make them all better, because if you're protecting the quarterback, you can throw the ball. You can throw the ball. You can run the ball. If you can run the ball, you can throw the ball. It's amazing how football, it's just all tied together.
Thumb placement and rotation.
Just turn the thumb down, apparently, and that helped him. Just instead of replacing the hand, it's like, just do that. Guess what? Hand comes off. It's almost like it's a nice self-defense maneuver, too. Somebody get your hand, just turn that thumb down, and they're going to lose their grip on your hand.
TERESA Walker of the Associated Press joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. T, we've talked offense. Defense gave up 29 points. Well, defense didn't give up all those, because at least one was a pick six. But, some of that was guys who aren't going to be here when they go to Denver. But at the same time, what's the mood around the Titans defensive unit coming out of Saturday night?
Well, they gave up 178 yards in rushing, and this is a team that was among the NFL's worst last year in yards rushing per game. I think they were 26th. And it looked a lot like last year. Now, James Williams Sr. flashed at inside linebacker. That helps answer a question. It's tough to grade completely. Jeffrey Simmons did not play. Devondre Sweat was, I got the hiccups. Devondre Sweat recovering from a tonsillectomy. He's going to probably not practice for the next week as they let him recover from that. Tip, get him out when you're 4. Don't have this problem as an adult. But in the secondary, it's kind of tough to gauge the secondary, because L'Jarius Sneed is like that big missing piece. And he's, Cushenberry's going to be returning to practice, and that return to practice segment to come off of the physically unable to perform list. Well, L'Jarius Sneed is there as well, and we're probably not seeing him this week. So it's like he's been out of sight, out of mind, but he is a big cog expected to start at cornerback for this defense, and that's the biggest question I've got. I think that Saturday we got to see some of the the younger players that, Keandre Coburn was a guy who was cut a couple days into camp after having a false start on one day, and he gets cut real quickly. Jihad Ward is a guy who got the sack. I mean, he's a guy that they brought in during camp, and he quickly made a splash play. So guys are showing at times. Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee. Jarvis, don't yell at the fans during joint practices. It doesn't help you. But the inability to defend the run to me is the thing that just jumped out. And they were talking in the broadcast, Nard Wilson, we're going to be better against the run. No, you aren't. Not yet. And then I've seen on some of the social media videos, we're going to defend every last blade of grass. Not so much. Bucks looked a little bit like a lawnmower on Saturday night. So it's the first preseason game. We still have time. They play the Falcons on Friday night. They wrap up the preseason on the 22nd, hosting Minnesota. And then 2 weeks to sweat and worry about the opener at Denver. But they definitely have areas to work on it. And I'm sorry, you've got to stop the run. You can't, this is an area that they were second against the pass last year. Why? Nobody needed to throw against them because they were running the ball.
Hey, real quick, Teresa, speaking of, that front group, what did we take away from Femi's debut? Kind of saw some mixed reviews online. And then also, I'm curious, especially on defense, was there one guy in particular that might be close to that chopping block that maybe played his way up in your mind from Saturday?
Well, I hadn't seen a ton of Cedric Gray. He was a draft pick last year, had an injury kind of derail much of his season, but he's a guy that I saw make a lot of tackles and definitely, showed why they took him last year. So I think he's a guy who definitely helped himself. And again, a couple of those interior defensive linemen, there is spots to be had behind Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. And I'm blanking on their names right now, but Cam Horsley is the guy who had the pressure, who helped set up Jihad Ward's sack. And I think it's Rakes is the other one. Those are the two that kind of jumped out at me a little bit, but you'd think I'd remember their names too. But that's the thing but they got to be better. I mean, it's like seeing them on occasion. My biggest question about this defense, who is rushing the passer? Because, Femi Oludeo has had his moments in camp, but didn't see that completely translate to the game. So he's got to step it up and improve, because there's snaps there for the taking at outside linebacker. They need pass rush, and somebody's got to step up and fill the shoes left by Harold Landry being cut.
Did Key not play Saturday night?
Who?
Key, Arden Key.
Oh, well, if he did, I didn't see him.
Okay. I didn't either. That's why I was
made one tackle.
Oh.
There you go.
Limited, I would
Okay.
imagine.
And that's the thing. When when you're an outside linebacker, you're going to get noticed if you have a sack. It's usually those interior guys who get some of the cleanup duty for the tackles, especially with the linebackers. But the way they were running it, guess who gets washed out when a team's running the ball really well? The outside linebackers.
Right. There we go. Teresa Walker of the Associated Press joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Anything that you're looking for in particular through this week and into that Friday night matchup with Atlanta?
I want to see how Lloyd Cushenberry fares as he starts working his way back onto the practice field. Let's not forget, he signed a 4-year deal a year ago, came in to be the starter, started 8 games, and then Achilles tendon, boom. So the fact that he has a chance to get back and start his way back this week, huge for this for this offense and for the middle of that line. And I want to see, let's not forget, Atlanta is a team on the rise, or at least that's the expectation. And I want to see how J.C. Latham handles the like of James Pierce, Tennessee Vol product, who seems to be making hay and getting into tussles a lot down in Atlanta. So I want to see how he handles that kind of pressure, he and Dan Moore. And secondary. I still have not about Brownlee or McCreary or Baker. I need to, it's like, and it's what we're not going to see this week is L'Jarius Sneed. He's kind, he's almost like that man behind the curtain. He's there, you just can't see him yet. But go win a game. Defend the run. If they can't defend the run better on Friday night, that's going to be a big topic moving into the final week of the preseason.
Teresa, real quick, the teams, we saw a little bit last week, but is this the week we get the big practice skirmish? I'm ready for some real good brouhaha. It feels like last week I was kind of a little bit of a letdown for what the Bucks brought.
What, you got your rookie quarterback trying to throw a ball in and hit somebody at the other side to stand up for his teammates? I mean, that was pretty impressive. I hadn't seen that one ever.
It's like Varsity Blues back in the day.
I know. It's like, here, let me take one out. But they really don't want them fighting. But this might be, Tuesday or Wednesday, we might have that fight, because Pierce has been a guy who's been doing that already for the Falcons. So I won't be surprised if that happens. And guys, it's going to be so hot. Somebody's turning up the thermometer again, and we probably will. So, I'll be monitoring the social media. I wish I were there, but my colleague will be there. So Charles Odom, and, we'll just have to see what happens. But, the biggest thing, survive this week healthy, survive Friday night healthy, come home and, start settling up, because guys, August 26th is the deadline for final cuts. And this team is number one atop the waiver wire through the first 3 weeks of the season. And lastly, we didn't talk about it, but boy, that backup quarterback situation, I got to think that they're going to be monitoring the waiver wire as we go through the next 3 weeks, because, well, we've seen what they got. 0.6 passer rating for Tim Boyle. 0.6.
Okay, so here's my question there, though. What did we expect?
True, because Tim Boyle, I mean, not a huge resume in the NFL there. Brandon Allen?
Not a huge resume in college.
True. He's a guy, he's one of those guys who has an ability to stick around, learn offenses, and hang on. But, I mean, shoot, Logan Woodside has had a career far better than I would have originally thought in the NFL. And Tim Boyle is an extension of that. The ability to learn an offense cannot, to make your coaches think you can be that guy as an emergency backup. And let's not forget, number 3 quarterback, you're behind glass. They don't want to break the glass and pull you out of there in the regular season. I mean, there's we all remember where they signed literally Josh Dobbs right at Christmas, and 10 days later, he's starting a must-win game to earn a playoff berth. And we know how that turned out. So, yeah, you can hang around. Brandon Allen is the guy that they feel comfortable with. He has started games with Callahan as the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. There's that comfort level there, and we'll see how comfortable they feel with either of them by what they do as we, they're going to be guys, they're going to be quarterbacks cut, and we'll see what they do then.
TERESA Walker of the Associated Press joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. As always, T, we appreciate it and look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Sounds good. Take care, guys. And, yeah, more football.
There we
Come
go.
on with it. See you, T.
Let's take a break here as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports today. When we come back, we'll talk a little baseball. Stay tuned.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of 4 to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic Borchetta Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Seventh, 1967, Joe Torre walks off the visiting Astros as his one-out solo home run in the 16th inning gave Atlanta a 6-5 victory. With the game tied at 4-9, Houston scored in the 13th as ex-Braves third baseman Eddie Matthews drove in Joe Morgan for the lead before Felipe Alou's solo shot forced a 5-5 deadlock and further free baseball as each team stranded a pair of runners in the frame. Houston also had a pair of runners on in the 15th but couldn't capitalize before Torre brought the shenanigans to an end. The two teams each threw a half dozen pitchers with the Braves starter Phil Niekro going 9 1/3 in the no decision. That was this day in Braves history. 16 innings. There was another Braves-Astros 16-inning affair a few years later, and a former UT player ended things for the Astros in that one. I'm still a little chapped over that one. But anyway, no extra innings this weekend. Atlanta with a 7-1 win to close out the 5-game series over Miami with a 4-1 series victory there. Atlanta winning 4-5 against Miami this week. And I don't know that was expected.
No, I mean, maybe not expected, but like I said in the rundown, I mean, you're kind of restoring a little sense of pride, if nothing else. Like, okay, we're not going to catch the top two teams. We ain't going to let the Marlins come in here. I mean, they're like 5 games up on us. We ain't going to let them beat us. Who knows how we finish, but you're going to have to earn these wins.
Yeah, and I mean, the offense, it was a team effort. I mean, they pitched well. A couple of one-run games that Miami was held to. They got some timely offense, especially late. Marcell Ozuna continues to make some in the Braves fan base upset that he wasn't traded because you mean nobody wanted this? Well, it's Braves Twitter is always interesting. If you follow it, you know, and if you don't, then you probably shouldn't. But Ozuna continuing to surge. Michael Harris II finding his way back after, again, Braves Twitter wanted him sent to Gwinnett earlier this year. So, there's not a whole lot that's really riveting about the Braves at this point, but I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment because I continue to watch. And Drake Baldwin continues to put his stamp on that NL Rookie of the Year award. It feels like another big series for him.
Hit a dinger, Friday or Saturday? And then
had 2 Friday, I think it was. He had a 2-homer game during the series and was just an RBI machine. I don't know what his numbers look like for the 5 games, but it seemed like he was driving in runs almost every time he was up. Baldwin was not behind the plate for the Braves yesterday. It was Sean Murphy, but also back there with Murphy was Jen Powell making her first umpiring assignment behind the plate after coming up and working both ends of the doubleheader on Saturday as a fill-in umpire. First woman umpire in Major League Baseball to work a regular season game. And, you know, she missed the first pitch. She called it a strike. It was clearly off the plate inside, but it looked like her zone was consistent if she was given a little inside. And looking at umpire scorecards and that kind of thing, I think she rated it like 93%. You know, she wasn't great, but she wasn't awful. And I don't know what the expectation was. I guess it kind of depends on who you're talking to, but
seems like a perfect series in that sense for her to ease into the MLB ranks. So, you know, not necessarily great, but not necessarily awful either.
yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think it's good that maybe it was, you know, a series where there maybe wasn't much more on the line than there was, because
yeah, imagine she's in Yankee Stadium or Shea, you know, or
right.
Citi Field, you know, I mean, or out in Los Angeles. We're probably having a different discussion today.
Yeah. So good for her. I'm not sure how much longer she's going to be up. Again, she was up on a fill-in basis from AAA baseball. She had been earlier in the week out at First Horizon Park, and a lot of folks reacting to her call up had seen her working Sounds games earlier this week. And you know, I think it's cool. I mean, I don't know what there is that would inherently make a woman unable to call balls and strikes and safe and out and that kind of thing. I don't know what the issue is, but again, from being on social media, I know that some people do have issues, and I think those are just their issues. But anyway, Braves are off today. They go to New York, taking on the Mets starting tomorrow night, and we'll talk more about that matchup then. Braves are going to New York. The Astros getting out of New York with 2 of 3, winning 7-1 yesterday, 5-3 on Friday, dropped a 5-4 decision on Saturday. Their lead in the AL West has dwindled to a half game now over the surging Mariners.
Yeah, and you know, got 2 out of 3, but it ain't good enough because the Mariners are on fire, 7 in a row now, playing great ball. And I mean, we kind of forecasted this because they loaded up at the trade deadline, and you know, whether they win the division or not, they were making a run for a postseason title, and so they are coming on hot. Fangraphs currently gives the Mariners a small advantage. They're 52% to win the division. Astros just behind them. Both teams are in the 90% threshold to make the playoffs. So, however this kind of shakes out, it seems that both teams will get into the postseason. And I've said it before. You know, Houston is not necessarily. They're kind of in an odd tweener year, and they've kind of in some ways overachieved thus far. It'll be fascinating to see what kind of run they potentially can make. It'd be really cool to see them give it one last hurrah here, especially if that means winning the West. But both teams will be forces down the stretch kind of battling.
Houston's got Boston coming to town starting tonight. It's a 7:10 start. The Red Sox just 65-54 coming in here, and Houston was just there about 10 days or so ago. Didn't go so well, and they're going to be challenged tonight. Garrett Crochet getting the ball for the Red Sox, 13-4 with a 2.24 ERA. Been one of the better pitchers in the American League this year. Christian Javier, 3-1 with a 3.89, gets the start for Houston. As we mentioned, the Sounds fall to the visiting Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp 2-1 yesterday. Swept in the 6-game series. They have now dropped 7 straight, and having picked the brain of our friend with the Sounds, Doug Scopel, the AAA Miners went to the 6-game series back in 2021. So it's been 4.5 years since the Sounds have been swept. This was the first time under that scheduling format that they've been swept in 6 games. And you know, getting swept in 6 really feels kind of unattainable, but the Sounds managed it. And the thing is, it's like they pitched pretty well throughout. It was all close games. It feels like they just couldn't get over the hump. Again, 2-1 yesterday, the final. So, you know, when you're losing and you're throwing up, you know, quality starts and that kind of thing, sometimes you just snake bit. but they are off today. They go to Durham to start another 6-game series tomorrow and trying to snap a 7-game losing streak. So we'll be keeping an eye on the Sounds. And it's been tough here, particularly in the second half, because they've been feeding a lot of guys to Milwaukee, who's best team in baseball right now.
Yeah, that's the good and the bad. On one hand, your franchise as a whole, your organization is certainly proud. And thanks for building those guys up. Now we'll take it from here. And Nashville's kind of had a little to deal with that a little bit as a result. That's the good and bad of minor league baseball, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Hour number 1 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports today is coming to a close. Come back for hour number 2 when we get into the grab bag. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the second hour of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. Let's get into the grab bag because, again, as we mentioned earlier in the show, there were some interesting games across the WNBA this weekend, none more so than the Minnesota Lynx going to the Big Apple, taking on the defending league champion New York Liberty. Both teams a little shorthanded. Minnesota without Nafisa Collier. The Liberty continue to play without Stewie Brianna Stewart. Minnesota takes care of business, 83-71 in that one. The second win for the Lynx in this season series. And, I don't know if it means anything or not, but the Lynx are on a little bit of a roll these days.
Yeah, it just feels like at least number one, they're on a roll, like you just said, but also number two, it just feels like even without Collier, the rest of the starting five and also the rest of the supporting cast just playing at a little bit better level, playing at a higher level, but also maybe just a smidge better than what the Liberty have got right now. Both teams probably, likely if they get fully at full strength, going to meet in the championship series. And it feels like both teams, though, need to kind of be at their best if they're going to make it to that championship series. So kind of a fun test in an odd format considering how many of the stars were kind of sitting that night.
Yeah, interesting. Looking at the box score here, particularly for the Lynx, without Collier in the lineup, they get 18 points out of Kayla McBride. They got 4 players in double digits. I thought Courtney Williams had more points than she did. She finished with 14, but also 7 assists, 5 rebounds. And getting Dejanay Carrington a couple of weeks ago in a trade was a big move for Minnesota. 15-6 for her off the bench. They just, like you said, really seem to be playing really as a well-rounded bunch, even without Collier. And 27-5 with the win. It's really them and everybody else feels like in the WNBA at this point. They are 6.5 games ahead of the Liberty at this point, and the Liberty and the Dream are tied for the second best record in the league at 20-11. So again, it feels like the Lynx and everybody else at this moment.
It does, and it also feels like, if Collier comes back and if that team kind of continues to gel and continues to play the way that they are with her healthy, it feels like a foregone conclusion. No matter who comes out of the other side of the bracket, it feels like it's their title to lose at this point.
Yeah. I was texting with friend of the show, Megan L. Hall, earlier today because Atlanta playing out at Phoenix yesterday, they get up 17 before halftime. Next thing you know, Phoenix has got a 3-point lead. And Atlanta, some kind of way, pulled it back together, picked up a 74-66 win. I was kind of watching just because Alyssa Thomas had gone into that game with 3 straight triple doubles, Came up a little short yesterday, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. But the Dream seems to be plagued by getting big leads and then somehow relinquishing them. And I was just trying to figure out what the rationale was behind that. How is that continuing to happen? And again, chatting with Megan, she kind of made the point, they got a first-year coach in Carl Smesco. They are, the schedule kind of limits just how much practice you can get in and preparation you can get in and that kind of thing. And just kind of making the adjustments has kind of made them a little vulnerable in terms of, late game situations and different things like that. But they've, I guess, being able to get the big leads is something, but you can't continue to blow them and continue to be successful to the level that they have. Again, they're 20-11. They're tied for second overall in the league, but they've got some things that they need to shore up.
Got some things they need to work on, and in some regards, they're still they had such a massive shakeup. They're kind of trying. You get these big leads sometimes, and unless you've got that group, that core that's been through all the fires and kind of knows, hey, it's not going to be this easy the rest of the night. Sometimes you let your foot off the gas by accident. And so kind of rallying the troops. Alicia Gray was very slow to start in terms of her scoring last night. She ended up finishing with 17, but it feels like 10 of those were in the fourth quarter. And she kind of turned it on late. So they're kind of finding their way. But the good news for them is, while still kind of finding their way, they're still winning a lot of games right there in terms of Minnesota being the hottest team in the league. They've been a fun surprise. And it feels like if we're not careful, if the Liberty are not careful, I should say, Atlanta's getting ready to lap them here sooner than later.
And also good news for the Dream is that you picked up that win and you're continuing to be successful with little contributions from BG and from Ryan Howard. Brittany Griner and Ryan Howard combined for 6 points in that win yesterday. Neither of them played more than 16 minutes. They're nursing some stuff, obviously, but they're going at it the right way, trying to be competitive and trying to, kind of monitor their minutes so that they can get them healthy for when it matters. But that was a big win on the road for the Dream, feels like, because they and the Mercury are among a bunch of teams that are kind of right there together in the standings. So nice outcome on the road for them.
Yeah, good win for them. And we said it last week on the show. Phoenix, after a kind of sizzling start, I don't know what's going on out there, but they are kind of crashing back to earth, and that is kind of disappointing because they were working their way into kind of a sleeper pick to maybe win this whole thing, or at least maybe play for the championship. But something's going on right now. Give all the props to Atlanta for getting that, but something is up with Phoenix, and if they're not careful, my Aces are going to catch them at some point. That's how bad they've been playing lately.
Your Aces are going to catch them if they're not careful. Your Aces coming up with a big win yesterday, despite trailing the Connecticut Sun 45-33 late in the first half. They come up with a 94-86 win when the smoke clears. And Asia Wilson, 32 points, 20 boards. The first 30-20 game in WNBA history, just continuing to cement her claim as the best player in the league.
She is certainly kind of playing her way into, it felt like Collier had this thing wrapped up in terms of the MVP race. Who knows? Wilson is doing that. Wilson is just, let's see here. Collier averaging 23.5. Asia Wilson's crept that number all the way up now to 22.2. So she's nipping at the heels for the regular season scoring title as well. And that's kind of how Vegas has had to play as of late. Hey, just load everything up on her. We talked with a couple of guests right around the All-Star break that she was nursing some injuries. I thought maybe there was a chance they might get so bad you might have to shut her down. They haven't shut her down. She's kind of rallied and just carrying this team to wins until they kind of find their way fully. They've won 4 in a row, playing some of their best ball of the season right now.
There are worse backs to jump on than Asia Wilson's, I would imagine. So
it's not a championship recipe per se. I don't know that there's enough support at this moment. I hate to say it, but enough support to really kind of rally them and push them that far. But they could certainly make a little bit of a run and maybe even upset a team or two with her playing the way that she is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a team that if they can't necessarily play for a championship, I don't know that a team that is playing for a championship wants to see them. So there's that. Wade, when is a record not a record? I guess when it happens in the preseason. Can you imagine sitting the ball down on your 40-yard line for a field goal attempt and actually hitting it?
Only on Madden.
Except that's what Jacksonville's Cam Little did Saturday night against the Steelers, a 70-yard field goal. Now, it won't go in any record books as the longest in NFL. Well, it's being recognized as the longest in NFL history, but officially, because it was a preseason game, that record will remain at 66 yards by Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens, but 70 yards. Mark's got it. Let's tee it up.
Holy smokes. They got a shot.
He just kicked a 70-yard field goal. Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
I've never seen that. The NFL record. That would be an NFL record.
Holy smokes.
That's unbelievable. He drilled the ball.
I will tell you, I was lucky to be down at Winchester one night back in the 1990s when Jeff Hall, who went on to fame as place kicker for UT, hit a 63-yarder. I can't imagine 7 yards added onto that. I mean, even at the professional level, that's incredible, as the guy said.
Ridiculous stuff. And that was down in Jacksonville, too. You know, we're not talking at Mile High. We're talking nasty, swampy, thick air down there in Jacksonville, and you boot a 70-yarder. That eclipses, however you want to recognize this, I guess. Not only that NFL record, but there was a 69-yarder, which was the longest in NCAA history that is now potentially by the wayside, again, depending on how you view this. And also, I am wondering, did Cam Little get a tap on the shoulder after the game and say, hey, we need you to come take a test for us? Because my man was booming on the 70-yarder right there. That was ridiculous.
The second longest kick actually belongs to high schooler Dirk Borgnoni, who hit a 68-yarder in 1985 for Nevada's Reno High School. I can't imagine a 68-yarder by a high schooler. Again, I saw a 63 and was amazed by that. And that was, almost 30 years ago, I guess, maybe more than 30, but 70 yards. That's it's indescribable. I mean, if thank goodness there were cameras.
I mean, it's preseason, right? So on one hand, it's awesome that he did this, and we've kind of mentioned the record kind of won't be officially recognized, but it's the perfect kind of time to try it. And I'm also kind of wondering, what goes into the thought process there, because this guy. If you can make it from 70, now you got the utmost confidence in this guy going forward. I'll be kind of curious to see how Mr. Little's kind of career in Jacksonville pans out now, and how, if any, their game strategy kind of changes now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel like once you cross midfield, certainly you're coming off with 3 for sure. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what their approach is from a field goal standpoint after that. Certainly they got a weapon there in Cam Little. So, Wade, anything else jump out at you from this first full weekend of preseason football?
Trying to think, Spencer Rattler, we've talked about the primordial soup of quarterbacks down there in New Orleans. And I don't know if you want to call me a truther or what, but I kind of liked what I saw out of Spencer Rattler this weekend. He got thrown to the Wolves last year. When they hand you the ball and say, all right, your first rodeo is going to be Monday Night Football up in Green Bay. Good luck, kid. I don't know how much you could really evaluate from that. And he wasn't great the rest of the season and all of his opportunities as well. But I was intrigued by him. I was also kind of, we saw some good stuff from the Giants and their quarterback room. The Giants are a team that I could see being a very, very sneaky good team this year, but I could also see in them being absolutely putrid. It's going to be one way or the other. But we saw 3 touchdowns through the air from 3 different quarterbacks. We saw famous Jameis throwing one. And I didn't like that, though, because it just makes me sad that he's not going to get the chance to really kind of shine for somebody else, because unfortunately, probably Giants fans are hoping at least that he's not seeing the field, because that means that Russ is in good standing.
Yeah, if Jameis is out there, then Russ is not cooking, and that's not a good thing. And it feels like Dart. It feels like they want Dart to be number 2 anyway. So, maybe they do Jameis a solid and cut him loose. I wouldn't mind seeing him here as a number 2.
You gotta be careful though, because he's good enough that Titans could work, because they feel pretty doggone solid about Ward, and you're gonna let him carry you as far as he can carry you. But if you're another franchise, got to be real careful. And the Giants are kind of right there on that threshold, because, some folks still got these fond memories of Russ, but you got Jameis right there on the sidelines, and you've already seen some good tape on him. Got to be careful with that, because that's a guy that could steal your job if you're not careful. Other thing, too, the Broncos, they are going to be so fun this year. They are a legit kind of Super Bowl contender, especially if Nix plays the way that he did last year. That defense is absolutely out of this world. They had for whatever it's worth, we're still talking preseason here, but they looked very, very impressive in their game this weekend.
Shedeur Sanders with a pair of touchdown passes in Cleveland's big win over Carolina. Obviously got a lot of buzz out of that. The other night, Friday night it was. So, it is preseason, but there's plenty of talking points, and there will continue to be in the run-up to regular season play here in about another month. So, we'll keep an eye on it. Let's take a break here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mark Story of the Lexington Herald-Leader as we continue our Southeastern Conference football previews, talking little Wildcats. Stick around.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We continue our Southeastern Conference previews as we welcome in from the Lexington Herald leader, Mark Story, to talk a little Kentucky. Mark, good afternoon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us, man. What's the feel around Stoops ball as we head into the 25?
It's kind of a team of mystery. There are literally 50 new players who were not on the Kentucky roster last season. There'll be 27 transfers and 23 high school players. There were 29 players who had remaining eligibility for Kentucky who will be playing for somebody else this year. My firsthand memory of Kentucky football, I probably really goes back to 1973. I was 9 years old, the year the what is now Kroger Field opened as Commonwealth Stadium. So I've been following this a long time, and I probably have less feel for this team than probably any of them, just because there's just so many new pieces.
1973. That's a little ahead of Derek Ramsey and Art Still in that bunch, right?
A little bit. Derek and Art were the sort of the cogs of the 76 Kentucky team that wound up being SEC co-champions, and then the 77 team that went 10-1. Still the best Kentucky team of my lifetime.
That's pretty wild. That many new guys, I mean, there's a lot that can be drawn from that kind of turnover, I guess. One is Kentucky wasn't very good last year.
Yeah, there's no question about that. In fact, Kentucky was bad. They were good defensively early in the season. In their first 6 games, I think they gave up like 89 rushing yards a game. But the offense was bad all year. The offense never scored more than 20 points against a power conference team. And I think the defense just got beaten down and sort of let go of the rope. In the last 5 games against power conference teams, I think Kentucky gave up 263 yards a game rushing. And, I mean, that's just dreadful. You're not going to beat anybody, that way.
Yeah, that's tough because they've got the ball and the clock is running. So it's a bad combination there. How do they go about remedying, or what is more important to remedy? I mean, you said the defense played well early on and eventually just kind of wore down and let go of the rope. What's the bigger focus for Kentucky?
I think there are 3 things they've got to fix. Last year was sort of the culmination of 3 straight years in which they have not played disciplined football. They've just, Mark Stoops' good teams, and when they were winning 10 games in 2018 and 10 games in 2021, well, they were tough-minded and hard-nosed and disciplined, and they could finish teams off, and they just didn't beat themselves. Really, the last 3 years, there's just been way too much sloppy football. You look at the Vanderbilt game. You go into that game against a team that runs a ball control offense, knowing that possessions are going to be at a premium, and you can't beat yourself. And Kentucky committed 12 penalties in that game, and just shot itself in the foot and basically helped Vanderbilt. So that's the kind of stuff they've got to clean up. The other 2 things, they've got to get the offensive line fixed. They gave up 35 sacks last year. They were terrible in short yardage rushing situations. They spent a lot of their budget in the offensive line transfer portal trying to get that fixed. They'll have 3 new starters out of the portal in the offensive line. So those guys are huge. I do think, I've been to 2 open practices in the spring and 1 this fall, and I do think they are better in the offensive line. I think the run blocking has looked better to me than the pass blocking, but I do think they're better. I mean, they almost have to be. And then the third thing, I mentioned, the rush defense the last part of the season was atrocious. And I think part of that was injuries, and part of that, as I said, I think they just got discouraged, but that's got to be fixed. And, they have more continuity defensively. There are more players back. Offensively, there's only 3 starters that are back. They'll be heavily reliant on transfers on offense. Defensively, there's more continuity, and I think there's talent. But the linebackers in particular, the interior linebackers, are a converted defensive back and a guy who redshirted last year trying to gain weight and then was unable to gain weight. He just appears to have a body he can't gain weight. The problem I do not have, for one. But I have some question about the size there, but the run defense has to be fixed.
Mark, looking at the schedule, we had just referenced Toledo earlier in the show, the team that's receiving votes and a team that's kind of flying under the radar. Really strong opponent. Kentucky, though, is still favored by 8.5 points in that game. Speak to the fact that that's going to be, whether fans maybe realize Toledo or not is the strongest there, that's going to be a fun test and an interesting test right out of the gate, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a tough opener. I mean, Toledo just rocked Mississippi State last year in Starkville. I mean, that's a game, I still think Kentucky should win it. I mean, Toledo is picked to win the MAC. Jason Candle is a very good coach, a very good offensive coach. So, I mean, that's a game you're going to have to show up and play. But, yeah, that's a tricky opener for a team with 50 new players.
Jump right into week 2, though, and you got Ole Miss. To me, though, it does feel like playing Ole Miss at home, there could be worse assignments. We know the rest of Kentucky's schedule is loaded, but to me, if you're going to open up with a, quote, tough opponent, Ole Miss at home, you're at least live, it feels like, in that game.
I agree with that. Ole Miss will have tons of motivation for that game because Kentucky, the one bright spot last year, they beat Ole Miss in Oxford, a result that probably knocked Ole Miss out of the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
So, they'll be super motivated, but you are getting them, first road game, brand new quarterback. I think that's a huge game for Kentucky, and I think that's a game Kentucky has a chance in. So, yeah, I think that look, for Kentucky, every game is huge because, very difficult schedule coming off a really bad year. You don't expect to have a huge margin of error. But, yeah, I think those first 2 games, if you could win those, you can completely sort of flip the negativity around the program, and just the whole conversation becomes different.
And there is definitely some negativity around the program right now.
Yeah, there has been. It's been kind of a gnarly off season. I don't blame the fans for being upset with what they watched last year. It was not a good product on the field. Mark Stoops is the winningest coach in Kentucky football history. He's the only coach that's really sustained any degree of success since Bear Bryant and Blanton Collier did it in the 1950s. So I think, people that are calling for a coaching change, while I understand the frustration, I'd be a little careful on that. But they need to be better. I mean, they just need to play better football. to put a better brand of football on the field, and we'll see what happens with the record. But yeah, they just need to get back to being kind of what his teams were when he had it going good. It was just been way too much undisciplined football these last 3 years.
You talk about the offense and their woes. Quarterback play didn't seem great for Kentucky last year.
No, Brock Vandegrift came in from Georgia, played behind a horrible offensive line. They just could not pass protect, especially off the edges. I mean, they were helpless against a good edge rusher, and that made it tough for him. But he had a rough go, and he 1 year of it, and he retired from football. I mean, it was obviously not a good experience for him. I actually feel pretty good about them at quarterback. In fact, I'm writing that right now. Zach Calzada is in from Incarnate Word. People probably remember him from Texas A&M when he was the quarterback the year they beat Alabama at home in College Station. A 7th-year player. He was brought in to be the starter, and I think he'll be all right. They can protect him. He has a very strong arm. I think touch is an issue. I think the ideal here is to get back to sort of vintage Kentucky with Benny Snell and those kind of guys when they were running the football. They brought in a tailback, Zach McGowan, who used to be at Oklahoma, got in trouble there and was out of football for a couple of years. He played last year at New Mexico State, and he has not participated in the scrimmages. He wasn't here for spring practice, and they just weren't using him in the fall practice. I think just saving hits, not having him take hits. But they've just raved about him, so I'm anxious to see. I think the plan is to get back to running the football downhill, and then play action, trying to hit plays down the field. If you can remember Kentucky in 2016, the first winning season Mark Stoops had, Steven Johnson wound up as the quarterback because of an injury to Drew Barker, and they had 2,000-yard rushers with Benny Snell and Boom Williams, and then Johnson completed a ton of big passes, deep post over the middle. I kind of think that's what they're hoping to look like this year. I don't know that they'll have 2,000-yard rushers, but I think they're hoping they can run the ball and play action.
Mark Story of the Lexington Herald Leader joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Mark, I'm fascinated by 7th-year quarterback Zach Calzada, and like you said, I do recognize the name from A&M. How does a guy, and I know, COVID and all that and extra years, but 7 years at this point, how?
Well, the free COVID year, and then I think a couple of medical hardship waivers.
Okay. So what is he, 25?
He will turn 25 during the season.
Get a little car insurance hookup for the rest of the squad, I guess, if it comes down to that. Mark, I wanted to ask you, talk about some guys transferring in. One key guy, especially for us here in Nashville, leaving, and Barry and Brown. How big it feels like for a team that might be okay, but might be, kind of on the fringe. Special teams could have made a huge difference, and we're talking one of the great special teams performers in recent history, certainly at Kentucky. How big will his absence be?
Yeah, they're really going to miss him on kickoff returns, especially because he was, to use a horrid cliche, he was a true game breaker and one of the best kickoff returners I've ever seen. So, yeah, I don't know that there's any way to replace that. They had just reached a point, I think, with their culture that they probably just needed to turn over the roster. But they lost some guys that are really talented, and Barryon is at the top of that list.
It seems like Kentucky's always a program too, even if they're not at their best or not having a great season. Come draft day, there's a guy that goes either in the first or second round, and you see the tape, you're like, holy smokes, this guy is a phenom. Does Kentucky have one or two guys, whether it's on offense or defense, that are at least going to be worth tuning in for, whether the team ends up being okay or not?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's a Maxwell Hairston who went in the first round this year, or a Deion Walker who went in the 4th round and probably is more talented than that. I don't know if they have that or not. There's a defensive lineman that transferred in from Washington State that Pro Football Focus rated as the second best transfer defensive lineman in the portal, a player named David Gusta. And he is really active. He's an interior defensive lineman, but I think he was credited with like 22 quarterback pressures last year at Washington State. Now, obviously, he's not going to be playing a Washington State schedule, but I think he is an interesting player for people to watch.
He's listed also 6'3", 315. Yeah, if that guy's got any kind of talent, he's big, if nothing else. A massive run stopper.
Yeah, he's also a hoot. In the media, we want him to be a good player because he's funny and it's fun to talk to. So we want him to be good for selfish reasons.
You love those. And Mark, to your point, transferring in from Washington State, you don't necessarily know, if his game translates to this level of football or not. But at the same time, I think folks kind of got a little caught off guard with that same thought process about a certain quarterback in our backyard here with Diego Pavia coming in from New Mexico State. So, you got to wait and see, but at the same time, you can't discount, well, he played at Washington State either, right?
Well, that's a good question and a good point. They changed their portal strategy pretty significantly this year. They had sort of just been, guys that they had recruited before that they didn't get, that had gone to Ohio State, or guys that weren't playing at quote unquote big brands. They changed that. This year they prioritized guys maybe from lower down the food chain who had proven they were good players. You mentioned one guy who fit that, who had a tremendous year last year, and then you look at Indiana and what they did, with a team, a lot of which came from James Madison. And,
right.
Their schedule last year was far easier than what Kentucky will face this year. But, I think Kentucky saw that and is, hoping to replicate some of that.
It's interesting that you talk about changing their recruiting strategy, particularly in the portal. The loss of Vince Marrow, who had been on that staff forever, was really kind of a, almost a staple in Kentucky football, it felt like. And losing him, not just losing him, but losing him to Louisville. How much of an impact do you anticipate that being?
Once he left, Kentucky's recruiting went fairly well. So I think it was interesting. I think they had made some changes in the way they recruit. We talked about how they changed their portal approach. And this year, their high school recruiting, they've been really central in the state of Kentucky and Ohio. And for whatever reason, they didn't put much emphasis on those states. And those states were where, those were Vince's primary areas. Mm-hmm. So whether they did it on purpose or not, the way they were recruiting, I don't know that Vince's role was as integral as it had been in the past. And maybe, he felt like I can't speak for Vince and I haven't talked to him since he left, but, whether he felt disrespected or just, that the program was moving in a direction different than when he had been front and center, I don't know. But yeah, when you switch sides in a rivalry like that, that's a pretty jarring thing. I can tell you this, the best free entertainment going is the replies to anytime Vince Marrow tweets now, because the Big Blue Nation is there and letting him know how they feel.
Mark, looking at the Vegas totals, Kentucky projected over 4.5 wins, and in conference play 2.5 wins. How does Kentucky get over both of those numbers, 4.5 total and 2.5 in conference play?
I think they have to win 3 games out of the first 4. We talked about Toledo, Ole Miss at home, Eastern Michigan at home, and then at South Carolina. I think they have to come out of those first 4 with 3. I think that's a key. Then, got to steal. One thing they've been really bad at, they're 2-11 in their last 13 SEC home games. You cannot succeed at Kentucky in the Southeastern Conference if you're not going to protect your home field. They've got a brutal home schedule: Ole Miss, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. I think probably to get to 6 and at least bowl eligibility, they've got to win 2 of those games.
Yeah, back-to-back weeks. 2 different times, at South Carolina and at Georgia, late September, early October, and then late October, Texas and Tennessee. That is about a tough of a 4-game stretch. Some rankings have Florida, or maybe even Oklahoma is the highest or hardest schedule in SEC play. I don't know how you could decipher that when you have that 4-game slate that Kentucky's faced with.
Yeah, Oklahoma's schedule is brutal. Oklahoma, Florida, and Kentucky have the 3 hardest schedules. And one of the things that's interesting to me in these super conferences is, now that these conferences are so large, is the variance in the strength of schedule. You look at Kentucky's schedule, and you look at Missouri's schedule. I mean, it's amazing. And the fact that they ran these schedules back, 2 years in a row, they made it tough on some people. I mean, you look at Oklahoma's schedule and compare it to the Texas schedule. I mean, Oklahoma's playing everybody, and other than Georgia, Texas doesn't play really anybody that was good last year. I mean, relatively speaking. I mean, it's really fascinating to me just how in these gigantic conferences, how the league schedule that you draw, it's everything.
If Kentucky gets those first wins, Mark, those 3 out of the first 4, seemingly could go over that number. Do they have enough juice to maybe get them to bowl eligibility in your mind? Or is that kind of 5 to 6 wins at the most, their kind of absolute ceiling in your mind this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I think if everything went right, I probably can come up with a scenario they could get to 7. I have a hard time getting them above that. I mean, to me, the goal, if they could get just bowl eligible against this schedule, I think Kentucky could be a lot better, and the bottom line not reflect that. But if they could get to 6 wins against this schedule, especially given how bad they were last year, I think that would be a pretty good achievement.
Good news or bad news? Is it a good thing or bad thing for Mark Stoops that Mark Pope has got to town now? Because I can make an argument either way. On one hand, it feels like, nobody's going to care about football again now that basketball seemingly is back in good graces. So I'm curious, does Pope's arrival kind of take a little heat off Stoops in that regard this season?
I actually think it probably does. It was interesting though when Calipari was still here, and when as things were going bad in those last 4 years, that was also, I think, took a little heat off Stoops because there was so much consternation with Cal. So in that way, it hurts because the frustration that was pretty concentrated on basketball, it transferred over to football. And look, they earned it. I mean, they had that was just a bad product they had on the field last year.
Mark Story of the Lexington Herald Leader joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia as we break down Kentucky football. Mark, appreciate your time, man, and look forward to catching up with you again here as the season progresses.
Appreciate you having me, guys, and I'm glad to do it anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Let's take a break here, and let's get to our final segment of the weekend wrap-up here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Y'all come back.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
It's the final segment of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade, were you as stunned as I was to see St. Louis up 2-0 before halftime against the Boys in Gold Saturday night?
You know, I was, but we talked about it on Friday. I kind of wasn't as well. I mean, this is a team that is kind of a year ahead of schedule in many regards, and the fact that they're kind of in the Supporters Shield race, if you're serious and you're a team that's really going to vie for that trophy, you win these games. Maybe draw. You certainly don't get kind of blown out. So it was a unfortunate kind of reality check. We have just been living in this dream world for NSC, and we're just all been floating and levitating here for the last 3 months seemingly. But this is a team that still does have some holes, and they're still not quite where they want to get to. The good news is, again, they're kind of ahead of schedule. But, man, that was a disappointing out on Saturday night.
Yeah, against 4-win St. Louis coming in, they trailed 2-0 at the half. We're down 3-0 at one point. Mukhtar with a penalty kick avoided the shutout, but it's St. Louis City 3, NSC 1, the final there. And you know, obviously you are the soccer head much more so than I am. I just looked at those records and looked at what what NSC had done to this point and just did not expect that. But every now and then everybody lays an egg, I guess.
Yeah, it was disappointing. There's no other way to put it. And you're disappointed because, again, you've overachieved so much thus far, which is a great thing. You've already reached that level where you're really frustrated and you're really kind of upset. This would have been a toss-up at best on paper last year, but now you kind of go into that matchup, and, yeah, you come out feeling disappointed, and it kind of wounds your pride in terms of, you know, you're probably realistically out of a Supporter Shield, title contender there. Now you just kind of got to take this loss, hopefully learn something from it. I don't know what there really is major to learn, but that's for BJ Callahan and his staff to kind of try and figure out. But you hopefully learn something from here. And going on the road in this league, going on the road in soccer is one of the hardest things to do in general. And that trickles down to even the MLS, and Nashville kind of paid the price this weekend. Tough result.
Still third in the Eastern Conference table, Philadelphia Union with 51 total points, FC Cincinnati with 49, Nashville holding there with 47 after not getting any out of that result Saturday night at St. Louis. And it doesn't get a whole lot easier as you go to New York City Sunday.
Yeah, another tough road trip, and New York is kind of firmly in the mix of the bubble territory for the playoffs. So Nashville, that is going to have to be at their best. They're going to have to rally the troops. They're going to have to play well. That was a pretty putrid effort on Saturday night, but you have a very, very scrappy team in another tough road environment. NSC will kind of have to if they drop another one here, it won't completely erase what we've seen the first 3 quarters of the season, but man, it will really put a massive dent. So hopefully they can come out and get at least a point on the road.
Yeah, you'd really like to see them get something out of the next one, especially since they've gone consecutive matches now without a point, having lost out at San Diego a week ago Friday. So all of a sudden, it's been a while since we've seen NSC win.
Yeah, common thread though, all 3 on the road. So the schedule makers unkind in this particular stretch for NSC, but you'll have your chances back here before too long at home. Yeah, if you can somehow scrap out a point on Saturday, you'll kind of get back to good. If you can somehow even get a win, obviously you'll be flying. So they're not in desperation mode by any stretch. It was kind of unfortunate, just a little bit of a reality check for them this weekend.
Wade, I was watching the 10 o'clock sports sections last night and saw the results from Watkins Glen and just busted out laughing. Shane Van Gisbergen wins at Watkins Glen. In other news, water's wet, right?
Yeah, don't know what else to say other than it's his world. When you step into his world, you are playing a dangerous game, and we all witnessed that. Other tough news though out of NASCAR, Connor Zilic. Did you see the clip of him breaking his collarbone or breaking his arm, falling, celebrating after winning the race on Saturday? He was second in odds to maybe beat SVG coming into Sunday's race, but he had an injury scare on Saturday.
Tough to drive with a broken collarbone, I would think. That's unfortunate. I didn't see it, but man, and that's a tough way to do it.
I mean, getting out of the car, I know we're getting old, and, I get out of the car and I pop my back. I don't get out of the car, try and climb up, grab the trophy and celebrate, and then fall and break my collarbone. Luckily, I don't have those type of problems to work with.
Whew.
Tough scene.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I did not see that. SVG wins it. Christopher Bell second. Chris Buescher, William Byron, last week's winner out in Iowa, finished fourth, and Chase Briscoe rounds out the top 5. Great weekend for Trackhouse, as soon to be former Trackhouse driver Daniel Suarez finishes 7th, and at 10 you've got Ross Chastain. 3 top 10 finishes for Trackhouse Racing this weekend. Not a bad day at the office.
We love that.
Meanwhile, Bubba Wallace wedges in there at number 8. Let's see. Let's scroll down a little farther. I'm looking for Josh Berry. 35th. Tough day at the office for the Hendersonville guy. No, not great. Not great. That's a tough one. But yeah, SVG's 4th win of the season. It's just amazing to watch, to me. The
other drivers, the respect him, but they're also looking at him like, all right, we see what you're doing, and we'll see you on the other races. Luckily for everybody else, there's a whole lot more regular speedways and tracks than there are road courses.
Yeah, thank goodness. We'll give you this one. Yeah, he's won all 4 of his wins have been on road courses. So led 38 of 90 laps yesterday at Watkins Glen. Trying to see, where do they go next week? They're at Richmond next week. Is that right? Yeah, the Cup Series goes to Richmond, which is back on an oval, so it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Back
there.
to reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. I imagine that's what everybody else is thinking, like you said. But he's won at Mexico City, Chicago, and Sonoma, and the most wins in a season by a rookie. Is that what I'm seeing? And he's tied for most Cup victories this year with Denny Hamlin. Not bad for a newcomer, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a gimmick or a little bit of a ring. I mean, he's a great driver. We're not diminishing him elsewhere, but he is just that much better than everybody else at this current point in time on those particular courses.
It's just uncanny to me. And again, I know that I'm not a guy who understands a lot about this, but I guess I just wouldn't expect it to be that different or that pronounced of a difference between, conventional tracks and road courses, that one guy would have such an advantage and that everybody else would just all but concede to him on a specific type of course. So
yeah, he keeps this up. We're going to be talking about, is he staying in NASCAR? He might, hit the F1 circuit at this point, the way the guy's driving.
He's driving phenomenally well. So, let's check out some golf from the weekend. We talked a little bit about Blades Brown on Friday. He did not make the cut at the Pinnacle Bank Championship out in Omaha. He finished up at 2 over. The cut line was 1 under. So tough day at the office for Blades. Shot a 3 over. That was Thursday that he shot 3 over. He shot a 2 under 70 on Friday. Still wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, we talked about it as we closed the show on Friday. Kind of dinged himself up, put himself in rough shape. It was going to take a massive, massive comeback. And, the fact, I'm really kind of interested to watch how he processes these next couple of weeks, knowing that he's got, on one hand, knowing that you've got security for the rest of the season could maybe take pressure off. On the other hand, it could force you or, tempt you to kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. Well, I can go out next week. It wasn't my best effort this tournament. I still got next week. That could be a blessing and a curse. So I'm curious kind of maybe which one it is for him. Hopefully he rebounds.
Yeah, they go to Boise this weekend, so be nice to see how he bounces back. Again, Justin Rose wins at TPC Southwind over in Memphis this weekend in a playoff with JJ Spawn. The third hole of the playoff is how far they go before Rose wins that one. So a lot of late excitement over in Memphis this weekend.
Yeah, this was epic, and I'm excited to talk to Calvin on the show tomorrow. He was on hand Sunday to watch the final round there at the St. Jude, and poof, Tommy Fleetwood, love the guy. He's one of my favorites on tour, but he is absolutely snake bit, and he blows it yet again. A pure and certified choker is Mr. Fleetwood, unfortunately. And the putt on 17 when he gives the stroke back, man, that was just a sad trombone basically type putt. It was tough to watch, and then obviously did not recover on 18, so he's out of the picture going in. But meanwhile, his Ryder Cup teammate Justin Rose, all he's doing is on fire. He's lighting the greens up out there at Southwind, birdieing 4 of the last 5 holes. I thought for all the world, if I had all the money in my bank account, I was expecting him to drain it on 18 for 5 straight birdies and win that thing outright. But he didn't do it. So he kind of left the door open for Spawn, who we've seen play so well. It was fun watching him go back and forth. Took him 3 holes. That got the USA chance kind of going. It kind of turned into a mini Ryder Cup when it ended up turning into Spawn right there versus Rose in the playoffs. So it was an epic scene. Memphis was there to party. Memphis was there to show out. Rose was blistering down the stretch and then somehow rallied in the playoff to pick it up. Massive win for him. I think he's 12th on tour all time.
Rose was down 3 going into the final 5 holes, like you said. Rallied back. I'm sorry?
I said it was unreal.
Yeah, and 2 birdies in the playoff. Meanwhile, Scotty Scheffler, also a stroke back, tied with Fleetwood for 3rd as it turned out. So, yeah, again, some late game heroics over at Southwind yesterday.
And that was the other thing too, Mo. Scheffler was not in the group with Fleetwood. I was really concerned. A lot of folks were wondering, would Scheffler get in Fleetwood's head, kind of stalking him coming into Sunday. But he didn't have to worry about it. He wasn't playing with him. And you could just see, and it was just mental anguish and just agony. I give Tommy Fleetwood a ton of credit, though, because as the playoff is starting, he's right there in front of the cameras. And, man, he was a broken and beaten man, but he faced the music, and he said he's getting close, but he's not close enough just yet. And it was a painful, painful scene. But props to him for doing that. We made fun of Rory for peeling out at Quail Hollow earlier this year and leaving the media in the dust. But Fleetwood faced the music. Kind of neat, too, though, in that sense. He was proud of Rose after the tournament. As I mentioned, the Euros kind of getting a little extra confidence heading into this Ryder Cup. Luckily for us, it's on American soil this year. But I don't kind of like what these guys got going on right now. They're playing too well.
Gotta keep them down here heading into the Ryder Cup, huh?
Yeah, and the fact that Rose is playing so well. I mean, he was in the mix briefly at the British Open a couple of weeks ago too. So I mean, they're playing some great golf, and I say the European golfers right now on the PGA Tour. Rose is playing some of his best. His second ever win over there at Southwind. He was phenomenal down the stretch. Was hoping he would win it outright, but we had to settle for. Never going to complain about 3 extra holes of golf.
High level golf at that. So yeah, we mentioned it at the top of the show, but again, and we've got coverage at mainstreetmurray.com. If you're into American Legion baseball, the Tennessee State champions post 19 out of Columbia went out to the Mid-South Regional Tournament in Washington, Missouri this past week and played some of their best baseball of the season, playing into the finals before falling to defending regional champion Bossier City out of Louisiana. Tough outcome for post 19. Again, they had won their first 4 games and done so in pretty much decisive fashion. Fell 10-1 and then again 5-3. Gave up 3 runs in the 5th inning to ultimately fall short of an American Legion World Series berth over in Shelby, North Carolina. But congratulations to Post 19. Great season. And good job by friend of the show, Scott Beasley, there coaching that squad. So that's going to do it for the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Join Wade and Calvin tomorrow as they talk more about Southland and the FedEx St. Jude Championship, among other things. I'll see y'all Thursday. Y'all come back tomorrow.